All right, welcome to those who have joined. Thank you all for your patience as we moved yesterday's presentation to today. We're glad you were all able to join us today. My name is Amanda Braun. Also on the presentation today is Kent Hullabar. We're both assistant directors with the competitions and golf operations staff here at the VSGA. Welcome to our first week of our Rules of Golf webinar series. Each week we'll cover different topics, and you should have an outline of what those topics are in the email that was sent from Zoom. As always, you're able or welcome to join either the noon or the 6 o'clock. Both presentations are the same, so you're not missing out if you join one or the other. And if you're not able to join a week, we will post a recording of one of the week's videos to our website, usually the next business day. We have a resource center on our website at vsga.org in a rules section, and that's where you can find the recording, and we'll also post a PDF of the slides that you see here today, just in case you wanted to go back and review a certain section or go through the slides on your own. Today, we do want this to be interactive, so we do welcome any questions that you have. We're going to use our chat feature for those questions. So as we go through the presentation, feel free to start typing your questions in, and we'll get to those once we get to a question slide throughout the presentation. We have some breaks throughout each section that we'll be able to pause and answer any questions or elaborate deeper into any of the topics you have questions on. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Kent to get us started with this week's presentation.
Thanks, Amanda, and thank you all for being here. We'll be presenting for maybe about an hour or so, and like Amanda said, breaking certain portions in the presentation for questions. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. So in the presentation today, we're going to go over 3 sections: forms of play, which can be found in Rule 3, parts of the course in Rule 2, and play the course as you find it in Rule 8. All right, to start us off in Rule 1, general question: what is golf? And I'm sure we all have our opinion about that. Game of golf is very simple in its basic concept: a series of strokes with a club from a tee in area into the hole. You repeat the process 18 or fewer times, depending on the length of the round that is set by the committee. And the why behind the rules, and have 2 awesome principles here, complemented with a couple pictures that we'll go into. But the 2 fundamental principles that guide the rules of the game and how it's played, which will be repeated throughout: you must play the course as you find it, and you must play the ball as it lies. This means you have to accept the bad lies along with the good, and you don't get to change your situation just because you don't like it. There will be times when you get to alter certain conditions or play the ball from somewhere else, but those circumstances are the exceptions and not the rule. So you can see in the left picture, you've got a terrible lie right in the fairway. Ball looks like it's in a bunker. I'm sorry, not in a bunker, in a divot. And then the picture on the right, you've got a great lie perked up on a tuft of grass in the rough. So you kind of just have to take it as it comes. Golf's a complicated game, and many things can happen. It also presents different challenges that are different than almost any other sport. You think about football and basketball, tennis, they all have the same dimensions of the field or a court, and that's not always the case in golf. And as you see with this series of 5 pictures here, that each hole, each course, weather situations present something different. Some holes don't have any water on them. Some have a lot. Some don't have any bunkering. Some have a lot. So every shot, every hole, every course has an opportunity to be different. So in most sports, players are trying their best to gain every possible advantage over another player or team. and attempt to get away with breaches of the rules. Gamesmanship and other tactics are expected, and referees are absolutely necessary, not just to assist, but to specifically enforce and call penalties. And golf's a bit different. You're expected to follow the rules yourself and apply your own penalties. You're expected to show consideration for other players by not attempting to deliberately distract them, and it's your responsibility to help take care of the course. I mean, can you imagine watching the Super Bowl and the players were expected to repair the damage created on the field by their play? Um, a committee can even decide upon even a higher standard of conduct by implementing its own code of conduct. This could include stroke penalties for foul language or other behaviors that are not in the spirit of the game. We have several different resources provided by the USGA, some publications, some more digital forms that can help you access the rules. Uh, the book itself is broken out into actually two separate books. The Rules of Golf is a full text of rules, including all of the definitions, rules, and subsections. This book has an index to assist you in finding the correct rule more quickly, and that is the top left picture. The official guide to the Rules of Golf is a book that contains the full text of the Rules of Golf, the clarifications, which are formerly known as interpretations, which replaced the decisions in 2019, and the committee procedures, which include model local rules and recommendations for committees in running tournaments. Additionally, you should be aware of any material available digitally. On the far right is an example, a screenshot of the Rules of Golf app. So anyone that's interested in the rules would benefit from having the app in this or having the book in this app form. Just a touch of a button and a few keywords, you can try to quickly figure out whatever rule or topic you're looking for. The Rules of Golf app is completely free, available for iPhones or Droids. You can turn on the expert mode in the app settings to make sure the clarifications and the official guide are available as well. It's fully updated when digital clarifications are added quarterly. Additional clarifications are added by the USGA and R&A, like I said, quarterly to help resolve any questions or issues that the rules more frequently might encounter than the quadrennial revisions. These will be numbered like the printed clarifications and will be placed in a position in the Rules of Golf app and online. So the middle screenshot is from usga.org under the Rules of Golf section. There's just a lot of resources here to list in one short description. The rules homepage, at usga.org /rules has all the applicable links to the Rules of Golf, the official guide, clarifications, equipment rules, which could be useful, as well as the rules of amateur status. It also has a lot of helpful links to documents, resources to help with studying and learning the Rules of Golf. This includes specific topic overviews, the Rules of Golf Explained video series, which is really helpful, and information on Rules of Golf workshops and educational programming, even the history of the rules of golf. So diving more into the book itself and maybe how to navigate that best, you can identify first and foremost the form of play. When making a ruling or answering a question on the rules, knowing whether it's match play or stroke play, and whether it's individual or partner play, or even a team competition can make all the difference. The rules provide different answers in many situations for different forms of play. Next, what you'll want to look at is the who, what, where, when, and why. These are basic questions to go through to get to the bottom of a rule situation. Who and whose ball is involved? Did the player themselves act, or was it someone else that was the actor? And what exactly happened? Did the ball move? Did it go into a penalty area? Was it deflected while in motion? What is the occurrence that you're trying to resolve? Where did it happen? Where on the course did the ball come to rest, or did the situation take place? This may help determine whether a ball is dropped, placed, or if the stroke does not count at all. And when did the action happen? Before the 3-minute search time has elapsed, after the 3-minute search time has elapsed, while the ball is in motion, after the ball came to rest. When a certain action occurs could make all the difference. One part of the book that I know a lot of us try to direct people to when they're first diving into the rules could be with the definitions. In many rulings, the answer to the question can be found directly from the definition without even getting into the actual rule itself. For example, if I'm allowed free relief from a boundary fence, if I'm unsure, I could go to the definition of a boundary object, which will answer that question, which is no. Then I'll go further into the rule itself. Knowing the applicable definitions is a first step, even if that does not answer the question. Next, find the rule that best applies to the situation. For example, my ball's on a cart path. What do I do next? Well, I can figure out that a cart path is an immovable obstruction, which is an abnormal course condition. So I can go to rule 16.1 for relief from an abnormal course condition. Then if that is still unclear from the rule, I can check for interpretations or clarifications. You should be able to make any ruling from the rules alone, but there are plenty of instances where the rules are subject to interpretation, and the interpretations have been provided to guide you towards the intended meaning. For example, the definition of improve means to alter one of the conditions affecting the stroke or conditions affecting play so that the player gains a potential advantage for a stroke. Well, what is the potential advantage? So rather than specifically state the situation by situation, what is and is not a potential advantage, a task that would never be complete with an infinite number of possible situations on the golf course, these two interpretations, 8.1a/1 and 8.1a/2, give some examples of what kinds of improvements would or would not create a potential advantage. So it kind of creates the real life scenario. And lastly, if the definitions, the rule, and the interpretations or clarifications are still unclear, you could always just ask for help. So everyday play on the golf course, you might be asking the professional staff. It may be a situation that occurs regularly at that course. In a tournament, if you're a player, you could ask a referee or the committee for help. I know that at the VSGA level, we've got plenty of volunteers out there, and that's what they're there for. And if you're a referee, never hesitate to get on the radio or phone and ask for help from a higher up committee member. You may eventually need to reach out to someone at the VSGA or another Allied Golf Association, or even make a call to the USGA. Amanda, are there any other early questions right now?
Yeah, just a reminder, we're going to use the Q&A feature. So if you do have any questions, type it in that question and answer box that's along the bottom of your screen.
Next up is forms of play in Rule 3. All right, so, as you can probably imagine, there's 3 different kinds of penalties, all designed to cancel out any potential advantage a player might gain by breaking the rule. First are the one-stroke penalties. These are more for minor infractions where the potential advantage is minimal, or the toll for the penalty in relief situations, such as red or yellow penalty area relief that you can see in the top middle picture or all the way on to the right. You can see the yellow stakes and the red lines. A general penalty kind of has 2 different definitions, or loss of hole in match play, a 2-stroke penalty in stroke play. So that's where it's key to know what form of play we're playing. For majority of the rules infractions where there is a potential for the player to gain a significant advantage, but not enough that it would nullify the player's score. And then lastly, something that we all hope that we don't encounter is disqualification. These are for breaches that are so significant that the player's score should not be allowed to count. This also applies when a player's actions are so against the spirit of the game that the players should be removed from the competition. I feel like the last example there is pretty severe and unlikely. So the different forms of play, match play and stroke play. Stroke play we see on TV probably week in and week out, and match play more so on the VSGA level and maybe in the Ryder Cup for more on the professional level. Um, One of the supporting principles of the rules of golf is that all golf is divided into two parts, match play and stroke play. These competitions for each form of play are so different that the rules have to be applied differently. There are even situations that the result in a penalty in stroke play, but no penalty in match play. We'll kind of dive into each match play being first. You can kind of follow along with the bullet points. Match play is the original format of golf and could be best thought of as a head-to-head competition. In match play, the competition is solely between the two players or two sides in a partnered format, and everyone who has a direct interest in the outcome of the match is present or can be present to protect their own interests. Because of this, players in match play are actually allowed to overlook breaches of the rules so long as there are no agreement to ignore a rule or not apply a penalty. This can be done in stroke play this cannot be done in stroke play because all players are playing against each other and need to be played on a consistent set of rules. Everyone in stroke play is concerned about everyone else's score. There are some unique components to match play. The match is played by holes, and it is in essence a series of 18 or fewer mini competitions that can be won, lost, or tied. And the scoring is by holes, whether that is up or down. Since the competition is only between two sides, you can concede a match, a hole, or the next stroke to your opponent. You don't necessarily need to hole out on each hole. The order of play is important and must be observed closely. If you play out of turn, your opponent can cancel your stroke and make you play again in the correct order. The player furthest from the hole must play first. You can decide rules issues on your own with your opponent. You can agree to ignore a known rule or penalty. You cannot make your own determinations with any opponent about how to proceed, even if you later find out it was wrong. Over to stroke play. Again, a number of different bullet points there. It's the form of play that came along a little later in the history of golf as a format designed to allow players to play against a large group of players, also known as the field. And they may or may not be present to protect their own interests. You compete based on the total score for each hole in each round of the competition, and the winner is the player who takes the fewest total strokes at the end of the competition. Because there are more players than just your own group and you have an interest on how you play, there are also additional requirements to make sure everyone plays to the same standard. Must hole out in stroke play. In order to have a score that compares to other players, concessions are not allowed. There is a scorecard, whereas compared to match play, you and your opponent really just need to agree on the match score and make sure the final result gets to the committee. In stroke play, you're responsible for the accuracy of your hole-by-hole scores and certify your scorecard, including making sure that your marker, who is the person keeping your score, has certified the card as well. There are certain rule breaches that must be corrected, and if not done in time, it will lead to disqualification because you must have a score for each hole. Certain breaches, such as playing a wrong ball or playing from outside the teen area, must be corrected before starting another hole or on the last hole of the round before returning your scorecard. Rules issues cannot be decided by agreement. If you aren't sure how to proceed, You are allowed to play a second ball and let the committee decide which ball will count before returning your scorecard. In both match play and stroke play, there are some alternate formats for which the rules can be adapted, including Stableford, which is more on a point structure, a maximum score in our 1 day competitions. I believe that's 10. For our junior golf circuit competitions, it's triple bogey. There's also par bogey in stroke play and also 3 ball in match play. There are also modifications to the rules for players with disabilities that can be found in Rule 25 that allow golfers to compete, including allowing an additional aid for blind golfers, equipment modifications, and other considerations relating to putting a ball into play. So, how do players compete? Within 2 major forms of play, there are actually 3 different ways that players can compete. First off, the individual play, which is probably what we see most often. One person plays against other individuals. This could be a singles match or individual stroke play. In the book, rules 1 through 20 are written specifically for individual play. Partner play, which is what you see in the middle picture, is a side of 2 or more partners that can play against another side. The most common form of partner play are either foursomes or 4-ball. In foursomes, you and your partner play a single ball and alternate strokes on each teeing area and during the hole. In 4-ball, you and your partner each play your own ball and count the best score for each hole. In the last picture, the team competition, you could have a group of players that are playing either as individuals or as partners, as you also compete against other teams. The committee in charge of the competition determines exactly how the teams compete against each other, including how many individual scores or how many points a match is worth. For example, in more of a college format, there could be 5 players on a team, but only 4 scores of the 5 players will count. Golf is played with 2 different scoring formats. A scratch competition, all players play an equal level, and the quote gross score is the actual number of strokes and penalty strokes without adjustment is your score for the hole or round. A handicap competition, players have their scores for a hole or round adjusted using handicap strokes. This is called a net score. The format allows players of different abilities to play against each other in a fair way. Let's dive into specific parts of the course. This picture is directly from the book, which I should have pointed out during the earlier slide, that the book is full of pictures to help explain different situations. The course is the specific place or the place where you play the game of golf. It's everything within any boundaries that may be in place and is split into 5 distinct areas. The teen area of the hole being played, bunkers, penalty areas. On this particular hole, looks like there's only red penalty areas. The putting green of the hole being played, and then the rest is general area. So the striped area being specifically the fairway, the darker green area being probably more rough area, but that is all just considered the general area. Diving a little bit deeper into each of those areas, I said the teen area of the hole being played because it is the starting place for that particular hole. So number 1 here on this picture. Then on any other given hole, there's only 1 teen area at a time. So as I'm playing this hole, if my ball ends up on another teen area, it's not the teen area of the hole being played, and some different rules might apply. Next, we've got some bunkers. These are areas that have been hollowed out and then filled with sand or some similar material, sometimes casually referred to as sand traps. These are considered less penal area than penalty areas, but they do have some special restrictions regarding touching the sand before a stroke. Next, penalty areas. This will include any sea, lake, pond, ditch, or maybe surface drainage ditch, whether or not it actually contains water at the time, or any other area defined as a penalty area by the committee. So in this situation, just a wooded area could be a troublesome area on this hole, and the committee has decided to paint it red. Penalty areas could be split from red into yellow. The color determines which relief options are available to you and when your ball is in a penalty area. Next, the putting green of the hole being played. This is the place on the hole being played specifically prepared for putting and where the hole is placed. On any given hole, there's only one putting green at a time. Practice putting greens and the greens of other holes not being played are considered wrong greens, which are part of the general area, and there's relief procedures for each of those. Next, the general area. General area is called, or is a catch-all term that encompasses everything except the other four areas we just talked about. The general area includes fairway, rough, just general sandy areas that are not bunkers. It includes pine straw, desert, or even forests. Anything on the course is in the general area other than bunkers, penalty areas, and the teen area and putting green of the hole you're playing. One area that's not listed is out of bounds. It's actually not part of the course, but it's specifically everything not on the course as defined by the committee. It is important to know what areas are out of bounds because you cannot play your ball from there. All right, this table has a lot going on in it, so hopefully as we break out each area, it starts to make a little more sense. Knowing which area on the course your ball lies is important for determining the options available for a player. For example, if your ball lies in a penalty area, you won't be allowed to take relief from an abnormal course condition. But to know where your ball lies, you need to know each area of the course is actually defined. So first off, the teen area. The teen area is a rectangular area that is 2 club lengths in depth, measured from the outermost and front edges of the tee markers. The width is determined by the placement of the tee markers. So your ball is considered in the teen area when any part of it touches the teen area or is above any part of the teen area. So think about when your ball is actually on a tee. The putting green is next. The place specifically prepared for putting is typically the shortest cut of grass on the course and is fairly distinct. There are rare occasions with sand courses that define sandy areas as putting greens. The putting green does not have edges that extend upward and downward. So in order for a ball to be on the putting green, it must physically touch the putting green surface itself or be on top of an object that is on the putting green, like a leaf or maybe just a piece of trash if it's floating across the green. Next, bunkers. Most bunkers are easily defined by the edges of the turf surrounding the bunker. Non-grass covered walls, and grass covered areas bordering or within the bunker are not part of the bunker. So you think of the lip of the bunker. Your ball is in the bunker when any part of it touches the sand or where sand would be on the ground inside the bunker, or if it lies on top of something in the bunker. For example, if your ball lies on top of a leaf or a rake that is lying in the bunker, your ball is in the bunker. If your ball overhangs a bunker, but does not touch the sand, the ball is not in the bunker. Next are penalty areas. Penalty areas are defined by stakes, lines, or physical features. When only stakes are used, the outermost edge of the stakes at ground level define the edge of the area. When lines or both stakes and lines are used, the lines are what define the edge. Penalty area edges extend vertically upward and downward. So if your ball is in a branch overhanging a penalty area, it is considered in the penalty area. Additionally, penalty areas can be defined as yellow or red. Next is the general area. The general area is one of the hardest areas to define because it is everywhere another defined area of the course is not. A ball is in a general area when no part of the ball touches another area of the course and is still in bounds. Which leads us to the last row of out of bounds. Out of bounds can be defined by any number of features: stakes, lines, fences, walls, buildings, or pavement, for example. Usually it is clarified on the notice to players or the course local rules that could be on the back of the scorecard. Local rules if there's out of bounds and how it's defined. If stakes or lines are used, they're typically white. Just like penalty areas, if lines are used, the line itself defines the out of bounds edge. If only stakes are used, the course side edge of the stakes at ground level define the edge. The out of bounds edge also extends upward and downward, but a ball has to be completely beyond the edge before it is out of bounds. If any part of the ball is touching the course, whether on the ground or overhanging in a tree, then it is not out of bounds. When a ball touches more than one area of the course, if a ball is touching, say, the general area and one of the other four specific areas, the teen area, bunker, penalty area, putting green, the ball lies in that specific area and not the general area. If the ball touches multiple of the specific areas, it lies on the area of the course following this priority order. It would first be the penalty area, bunker, and then putting green. So how are areas of the course treated differently? Once you know where the ball lies, you can then figure out what options are available. The areas of the course are treated more or less favorably under the rules and will give you permissions or restrictions regarding the ball and surrounding conditions depending on where it lies. First off, teen area. The teen area is considered the most favorable area of the course. One reason for this is that generally the ball is not in play yet, so you have the most leeway with what can be done. You can tee the ball in various ways and are cut a little bit of slack if you accidentally knock the ball off the tee. On some other areas of the course, you cannot remove dew and frost or create or eliminate irregularities of the surface. However, those restrictions don't apply when the ball is in the teen area. Next, the putting green. The putting green is the next highly favored area on the course. It's the most highly prepared surface with the least amount of forgiveness for the final target, which is the hole. There are a number of specific permissions, including the ability to mark and lift your ball when it is on the putting green and clean it, or to repair any damage to the green. There is no penalty for accidentally moving the ball or ball marker on the putting green. While sand and loose soil are not necessarily loose impediments, you do have specific permission to remove sand or loose soil from the putting green. Being on the putting green does come with some restrictions, as you may not deliberately test the surface of the green by rubbing the surface or rolling a ball, except on the last putting green played or when between two holes. Next, the general area. The general area is the middle of the favorability scale. It is treated better than bunkers and penalty areas, but there is not much leeway as the putting green. There is a penalty for accidentally moving your ball, including while moving loose impediments, the exception for movable obstructions or while trying to find the ball. You cannot improve your conditions affecting the stroke, which are the lie, area of stance or swing, the line of play, or the relief area by various means that are otherwise allowed in the teen area and on the putting green. Free relief is allowed for physical interference from an abnormal course condition and dangerous animal conditions, but not for live play intervention. Next, bunkers. Bunkers can still be a penal area, but they are considered a slightly better place to be than a penalty area. You're not allowed to touch sand in the bunker before making a stroke to test the conditions and making a practice swing and making your backswing for the stroke or in the area right near the ball. Free relief is allowed for physical interference from an abnormal course condition and dangerous animal condition, but relief without penalty must stay within the bunker. You may decide to declare the ball unplayable in a bunker, but relief must be taken inside the bunker, except when proceeding under a stroke and distance penalty, which is where the previous spot outside the bunker, or when using the option to take back on the line relief outside the bunker for 2 penalty strokes. Next are penalty areas. Penalty areas are the harshest place your ball can end up that is located on the course. Free relief is not allowed for interference by an abnormal course condition or embedded ball if your ball is in a penalty area. You may not treat your ball as unplayable in a penalty area, but must use the options provided for relief from a penalty area. The only options to get out of a penalty area cost 1 penalty stroke to use any of those options. That was kind of a long section. Are there any questions?
We do. We have quite a few questions, a lot of good ones in here.
All
Going
right.
back to the forms of play, one of the questions we had that came in is if you play out of turn in match play, can you drop another ball or are you required to retrieve your original? So this person is saying if they played out of turn and the opponent recalls that stroke, what would they do? In this case, the rules do allow you to drop another ball. You don't have to retrieve the original in this situation. I think that's part of the pace of play of not making you run up to wherever that ball landed to retrieve it. And when you do drop that ball, it would be the same way you would in stroke and distance, which is what we're going to cover later on in week 3. Our next question with forms of play is in stroke play, the player farthest from the hole plays first. But if that player has a partner, let's say in a 4-ball or foursomes, the partner can play since the team is away. And yes, that's the case in 4-ball when there's a side, which is a side is 2 players. The side that's away determines they have to play first in match play, but they can choose the order. So if my ball is the farthest out, but my partner is closer and they want to play first, because the side is away, they are allowed to do so. And then moving into our area of the course questions, if the teeing area is clearly outlined by the type of mowing, can you go 2 club lengths behind the tee markers if doing so would move you to an area of the course that's truly not intended to be part of the tee? And the answer to this is yes. The rules don't say that the teeing area must be a certain height of mowed grass. It would be on the course or whoever is setting up a competition to make sure those tees are set up so the players do have 2 club lengths back from where they're set and would still be in that cut area that we consider the teeing area. But if it is two club lengths and not cut, if the player wanted to tee up there, they would be entitled to do so. We had a couple questions about talking about margins. What does up and down mean? And then I had another question of if a ball overhangs a boundary line, is it touching the applicable course? So I'm going to combine these two. When talking about margins, my out of bounds example is on that slide that Kent showed. Out of bounds is an up and down margin. What that means is if your ball is up in a tree overhanging that out of bounds line, it would still be considered out of bounds. And same thing if it was buried into the ground or partly under the ground, it would still be considered out of bounds. In out of bounds, it does have to be 100% over that out of bounds line. So if a piece of that ball is overhanging or touching a part of the course or the general area, you would still be in bounds in that situation and could play. Another good question, if your ball rests against a penalty area stake or an out of bounds stake, do you get relief from the stakes? And this question does depend on what type of stake it is. So penalty area stakes, if you look in the definition of penalty area, will tell you that those stakes are movable obstructions. So you are allowed to take them out to play your ball. But if you go to the out of bounds definition, it will tell you that those are fixed objects, meaning that they cannot be removed. And if they are, you would incur a penalty, which is a highlight into our next section that Kent will cover here today. Kent mentioned abnormal course conditions in his last slide a couple of times. Just had a question of what those are. Abnormal course conditions is a term that it has 4 different meanings. So abnormal course conditions could be ground under repair, animal holes, immovable obstructions, and temporary water. We'll cover abnormal course conditions a little bit deeper in our 3rd presentation in 2 weeks from now. That's all we have now. A lot of great questions, so please keep them coming as we go into our last section for today.
Yeah, those were some good questions. Last section here, course plays as it is found in Rule 8. Conditions affecting the stroke, what a lot of people like to just refer to as CATs. There are 5 things. CATs is a defined term, and each word here that is underlined and italicized is also a defined term, which is something that you will notice in the book a lot. First, the lie of the player's ball at rest. That's an example of the first picture, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Next picture, the area of intended stance. The highlighted area in yellow, this includes our feet, but also includes our body position within that stance. The next picture, the middle one, the area of intended swing. The highlighted area in yellow here is the yellow circle because it includes the backswing and the downward motion of the swing, which includes the follow through. Next, the line of play. This is not just a direct line. It's where we want our ball to go and a reasonable area on either side. I mean, we all know where we would like our ball to go, but it doesn't always go right on line. And lastly, the relief area where the player will drop or place a ball. And this actually is this white dotted line. So it's any area where this player looks like he's taking cart path relief and has a club down, measuring that area. And so he's going to drop it within that area. Next is the definition of improve. It's another golf definition that is slightly different than what you might find in Webster's dictionary. To alter one or more of the conditions affecting the stroke or other physical conditions affecting play so that the player gains a potential advantage for a stroke. Within the clarifications, specifically 8.1a/1 and 8.1a/2, these will help explain what that means to create or gain a potential advantage. An example could be a divot is several yards in front of my ball and I hit a 200-yard shot versus a divot that's right in front of my ball and I'm going to choose to putt the ball from off the green. So if I replace the divot, which is more likely to have an effect on my shot? Next, we've got some allowed actions. The allowed actions like fairly searching for your ball, which is the top left picture. You can remove objects such as loose impediments, which is this leaf in the bunker, or movable obstructions, which is the rake also in the bunker. You can mark, lift, and replace your ball. Ground your club lightly so that only the weight of the club is supported by the ground. You cannot press the club into the ground. You can firmly place your feet to take a stance, probably most likely in a bunker. And then you fairly take your stance, which is probably best depicted by the bottom right picture. This player in the bottom right is taking his stance in a tree within reason. He didn't hook the tree branch under his arm. He backed into the tree and got a fair stance. Some more allowed actions. Make a stroke, including the backswing. For example, my ball's in a tree and I have a limited backswing. If I make my backswing, break some branches in doing so, but complete my backswing, or sorry, complete my swing altogether, I'll be okay. But in a different example, if I make my backswing, break several branches, and then get a little scared and stop my backswing altogether, well, now I've created an advantage. Next is making improvements to the teeing area, which is depicted with the top picture. That's Laura Davies on the tee, where you might know that she uses her driver to raise an area of grass and then uses that grass as a tee. You can make improvements to the teeing area. I'm sorry, next would be smooth sand in a bunker after playing from it. Take that very literal. Your ball's in a bunker. You play the ball from the bunker, could be forward, backward, or to the side. You can then smooth that sand without restriction, even if the next stroke could be going over the same bunker. You make improvements to the putting green. So tap down spike marks, remove sand and loose soil, or fix ball marks. Move a natural object to see if it's loose. So if it is loose and not attached, then you can move it. Let's just assume maybe a stick. But if you find that it is attached, then you need to put the object back to its normal state. Next, we have some prohibited actions broken up into fixable and not fixable. I think I'm going to start on the right column with the not fixable. This would be altering the surface of the ground, which is going to be impossible to restore how it was. Removing or pressing down sand or loose soil, again, you won't be able to put that back in its exact spot. Or removing dew, frost, or water. Now over to the fixable column. This is you're able to put the object back in its same position to avoid the penalty. So moving, bending, or breaking any fixed natural object, hooking a tree branch around your arm, you realize that that's not allowed. You're going to be able to back away and allow that tree branch to return to its normal position. Or moving a movable object into place, which is shown in that picture there, the player standing on the bench. What if he moved this bench into position to make a stroke? If he did that, he could avoid penalty by moving the bench back. But maybe he got lucky and that bench was already there. Well, then it is his lucky day and he's okay. So how you may fix some of these: by restoring the original object back to its original position, such as a boundary stake or that tree branch that I mentioned, so that the created improvement is eliminated. Or by removing the object that was moved into the position. So like I said before, if that player on the bottom picture moved that bench 4 feet to the side so that he could stand on it and swing at that ball in the tree. Any questions after that?
We have a few questions. Before I get to that, if there are any PGA professionals that are listening to our presentation today, go ahead and use that Q&A feature and type in your PGA number, and we'll make sure that we send it along to the MAPGA so you get your credit for participating. Questions with this section, the first one being, what is the penalty for breaking limbs in the practice backswing? In this case, if you were to break limbs in a backswing, if it was practice, it would be the general penalty. So again, 2 strokes in stroke play, loss of hole in match play. If improve the conditions affecting the stroke, which in this case, I would argue it probably would, since those limbs were most likely in the way for the actual stroke that you are about to make. Is if you are in a sandy area, for example, a waste area not defined as a bunker, and you lightly ground your club behind the ball, if you move any sand at all, have you improved the cats, subject to penalty. In this situation, I would argue you have not, as long as you have not firmly pressed into the sand. The rules do say that grounding the club lightly means allowing the weight of the club to be supported by the grass, soil, sand, or other material on or above the ground surface. So I would say you're allowed to gently rest your club behind the ball like you would anywhere else on the course. Again, as long as you aren't firmly digging in to improve that area. Another question about a rock, if it's slightly embedded in the general area near my ball, can the rock be removed? So a rock in this situation would be considered a loose impediment. So those can be removed anywhere on the course as long as your ball doesn't move. So you do take the risk when removing loose impediments that if you do cause your ball to move, it would be a one-stroke penalty and you must replace the ball. But if you think you can pick that out without causing your ball to move, you are free to do so. If a prohibited action is fixable, is it really prohibited? It depends on the situation. Great question here, but the rules allow you to, it says that they are not allowed. However, there are cases, as Kent went through, that you are able to undo them and prevent penalty. So I think that's kind of where the rules are saying it's prohibited. Whereas if you were to do it without fixing it, you would get the general penalty, but they do allow you to fix some things depending on what you were improving. Can you clarify a rule for a ball against a bunker rake and moving the rake moves the ball? So a bunker rake would be considered a movable obstruction. Getting ahead to, we'll cover this, I believe, more in our third week presentation as well. But if you look at the rules for movable obstruction, the rake is allowed to be moved. If the ball were to move when you move the rake, you just have to put it back. There would not be a penalty in that situation since it's a movable obstruction. So movable obstruction, different than loose impediment. Movable obstruction is an artificial object, whereas a loose impediment would be something natural, such as a rock, an acorn, a leaf, pine straw, things like that. And just clarification, in the question that I was asked earlier, grounding your club in sand, in the situation, that sand was not part of a bunker. You still cannot ground your club in a bunker itself. All right, we'll continue with our last couple slides here today, see if any other questions come in.
All right, that sounds great. Yeah, I was just going to add to one of the questions about prohibited. I mean, I think as you dive into the rules, that might be a slightly frustrating situation that the rules tell you to do something or that you can't do something, but then they give a series of exceptions. So it's like it's bouncing back and forth sometimes. Just the last couple of slides, just to highlight on a few things, what's coming up next week. Finding and identifying the ball under Rule 7, playing the ball as it lies in Rule 9, ball in motion deflected and what to do there in Rule 11, and ball handling in Rule 14. So it should be a lot of good information there. One thing we wanted to toss out there were some additional rules resources that if you're looking to dive in even more, the USGA rules section has some great things from the videos that I mentioned before, some additional links, and even a free Rules 101 online course. Everything is found at usga.org. And then another site, I'm sure there's tons of, quiz and rules related sites out there, but one that is very good and informative is the Roving Official. It's got a lot of quizzes, a lot of different ways to look at the rules and kind of test your knowledge. If you answer a question right or wrong, there's areas that you can get explanations on that, which I think is really good. So the rovingofficial.com is that website. Amanda, do you have anything to add before we sign off or take some additional questions?
Let's see. I don't think there's any more. I'm going through and answering some of these offline. All of your questions might push you to other weeks, depending on if I know it's going to be covered in next week or the week after's presentation. But again, thank you all. We will post a recording of either this recording or the one from the 6 o'clock later tonight to our website. So if you did want to review this information again, you can look for it there again, most likely sometime tomorrow. But thank you all for joining us in our first week. We hope you continue to come back next week and the week after to continue learning about different areas in the rules of golf.
Yes, thank you very much. We hope to see you next week.